Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading to a place that's, well, both awe-inspiring and utterly terrifying. K2, the Savage Mountain.
That's right.
Picture this immense peak, just raw rock and ice. And then think about one day, August 1st, 2008, when 11 climbers lost their lives up there. It's one of mountaineering's darkest moments.
Truly a devastating day.
So our mission here is to really get into the human side of that tragedy. We're using Graham Bowley's book, No Way Down, Life and Death on K2. It's based on, hundreds of interviews.
Yeah, with survivors, families, experts, really comprehensive.
Exactly, because this isn't just about climbing a mountain, right? It's about why people take these insane risks, the kind of impossible decisions made in the death zone, and, the fallout from it all.
The pressure up there is unimaginable.
We'll look at what exactly went wrong, the moments of incredible bravery, and just grapple with these big questions about ambition versus the sheer power of nature.
It's important to understand K2 first. It's actually shorter than Everest, nearly 800 feet shorter, at 28,251 feet.
But shorter doesn't mean easier. Far from it.
Not at all. It's considered much, much harder. Steeper on all sides, and because it's way further north, like 550 miles north of Everest, the weather is just brutal, more unpredictable, colder.
That really nails why it's called the Mountaineer's Mountain. I mean, the stats are stark. By 2008, only about 278 people had ever summited K2, Everest. Thousands.
Right, and the death rate.
Chilling. 1 in 10 who reached the top didn't make it back down. Even before 2008, it had killed, 66 climbers?
At least, yeah. It had this aura of mystery and danger, not like the sort of commercial circus that Everest was becoming. K2 is different.
And this mystique, it started early, didn't it, back in the 1850s?
Yeah, 1856.
Yeah.
A British surveyor, L.T. Montgomery, was mapping the Karakoram range. He sketched the peaks and just labeled them K1, K2, and so on. K for Karakoram.
K1 got renamed Masherbrum, but K2 just stuck.
It did. Someone tried to rename it Peak Godwin-Austen in 1888 after an early explorer, but nope, K2 it remained. Though the Godwin-Austen Glacier is at its base.
The early attempts to climb it are, frankly, kind of wild. That 1902 expedition.
Oh, with Aleister Crowley?
Yeah, the occultist. The wickedest man in the world, trying to climb K2.
And they brought 3 tons of luggage, including, volumes of Crowley's library. It's just bizarre.
They barely got above 21,000 feet before it all fell apart. Sickness, infighting. Crowley apparently threatened someone with a gun.
Yeah, a revolver.
Yeah.
It just shows how unprepared they were, how little they understood what K2 demanded. Total chaos.
Then there was the Italian Duke in 1909, Prince Luigi Amedeo.
Right, the Duke of the Abruzzi, a real climbing fanatic. He wanted the altitude record.
And talk about luxury, 6.5 tons of luggage this time. Fancy sleeping bags, the works.
But he did something crucial, didn't he? He mapped a route.
He did. He charted the Abruzzi Spur, which is still one of the main routes today. But even he, with all his resources, was awestruck, called K2 the indisputable sovereign of the region.
And he turned back.
Turned back at 20,000 feet. Declared it unconquerable. Even the best-equipped teams were humbled early on. So, the Duke said unconquerable, but eventually it was climbed. Decades later, 1954, another Italian team.
That's right, led by Ardito Desio.
But that first summit, it wasn't exactly a simple story of triumph, was it? There was some serious drama.
Oh, absolutely. July 30th, 1954. Achille Compagnoni and Lino Lacidelli reached the top around 6 p.m., but they ran out of oxygen, had hallucinations. It was incredibly tough.
And the controversy.
Yeah, it started almost immediately. Accusations flew that Compagnoni deliberately put the final camp higher up and hid it. Why? To stop a younger, very talented climber, Walter Bernardi, and a Hunza porter named Madi from getting a shot at the summit themselves.
Wow, so what happened to Bernardi and Madi?
They were forced to bivouac, spend the night out in the open at extreme altitude without shelter. Madi got severe frostbite, lost half of both his feet. He cast a really long shadow. Decades of bitterness.
It shows how, even at that moment of incredible achievement, human rivalry can just sour everything, lead to terrible consequences.
Exactly. And this theme of things going wrong, logistics failing, communication breaking down, it keeps coming up. Like the Weisner expedition in 1939.
Right, Fritz Weisner, an American star climber. He got so close, 27,500 feet, just hours from the top.
So close. But then his Sherpa partner, Pasang Lama, refused to go on at dusk, said he was afraid of the mountain gods.
And then everything unraveled.
Completely.
Yeah.
Weisner had set up this complex system of 9 camps. But then colleagues lower down, apparently disaffected, started dismantling the lower camps. Sherpas higher up abandoned their posts because they wrongly thought Weisner was lost. It was a cascade of failures.
Leaving his partner, Dudley Wolfe, stranded.
Exactly. Alone at Camp 8, very few supplies. A rescue attempt was mounted, but it failed. Wolfe and 3 Sherpas died. Those were the first known deaths on K2.
Just devastating. It highlights how incredibly fragile these huge expeditions are. One mistake, one miscommunication.
And it can be fatal, absolutely.
Then just a few years later, 1953, another American expedition adds, well, another layer to K2's story. This time about sacrifice.
Yeah, the expedition led by Dr. Charles Houston. A climber named Art Gilkey got thrombophlebitis blood clots high up, around 25,500 feet. Very dangerous.
So his team tried to rescue him.
He did. His 6 teammates made a makeshift stretcher and started this incredibly perilous descent in a storm. At one point, Pete Schuning performed this legendary feat, the belay, where he single-handedly held the rope and stopped 6 falling climbers. Just amazing.
Incredible. But what about Gilkey?
Well, Gilkey apparently realized he was slowing them down, putting everyone else at risk, and somehow he slipped away from the stretcher, sacrificed himself.
Oh, wow.
It was this profound moment. So they built the Gilkey Memorial, a cairn, like 10-foot pile of boulders down where the glaciers meet. It became this place climbers had to visit, to remember, to add the names of others who are lost. A real monument to that spirit of teamwork, but also to K2's lethality.
That memorial really symbolizes K2's brutal legacy. If those early stories show individual struggles, 2008, that was different. That was collective horror on a scale not seen before. Let's move to that day, August 1st, 2008.
Right. And it started, almost mockingly perfect.
Yeah.
29 climbers, 8 different international teams, all heading up from Camp 4 at 26,000 feet.
Including an American doctor, Eric Meyer.
Yeah, an anesthesiologist from Colorado. He and his partner, Strang, looked out and saw perfect weather. Winds gone, just like the forecast said. Meyer was actually hoping his medical skills wouldn't be needed that day.
But even on a perfect morning, the danger is right there. The route goes up the bottleneck directly under the Great Serac.
That massive overhanging glacier. And because Meyer and Strang saw in daylight, which climbers starting earlier in the dark wouldn't have, they saw its true nature. Meyer said it looked like giant ice cubes stacked on top of each other with really obvious, pronounced fissures.
So it looked unstable.
It looked unstable. They knew seracs move slowly, and sometimes bits break off. This one had been quiet, but still. You worry about temperature changes, expansion, contraction. It was a known hazard, looming right over the only viable route.
And adding to the danger.
Exactly. There was supposed to be this cooperation agreement, right? Fix ropes together, move fast, avoid jamming up the bottleneck.
But the reality?
The reality was messy. The lead group hadn't fixed the ropes all the way. People were yelling for more rope. It caused this huge delay, right in the most dangerous spot.
Meyer saw maybe 27 climbers packed together.
Yeah, he said it was one of the highest concentrations ever trying for the summit on one day. All different nationalities, hardly speaking the same language. He worried they were too focused on each other, not noticing how late it was getting, or that giant serac hanging over them.
And Wilco van Rooyen, the Dutch leader, was trying to hurry everyone.
Yeah, he was the chief organizer of this cooperation thing. Apparently he was really frustrated, yelling, "Hurry up!" You can just picture the tension.
And all this is happening in the death zone, above 25,000 feet.
Where the air pressure is so low, your body and brain just start to break down. Muscle strength plummets, thinking gets fuzzy. You literally can't trust your own mind. Life is barely sustainable.
So climbers are either on oxygen, which is like a ticking clock.
Right, you run out eventually.
Or they're climbing unaided, like the Americans and Dutch wanted to, facing the mountain raw. But either way, your judgment is impaired.
Massively. Simple decisions become monumental. That's the critical thing. The altitude itself is warping how everyone thinks and acts.
So some people did see the warning signs, Meyer and Strang.
Yeah, they looked at the slow pace, the time.
Yeah.
They did the math. Summit, late afternoon, maybe early evening. Descending the bottleneck in the dark. Too risky.
They had to give up a lifetime's chance.
A huge decision. But they didn't trust the serac, didn't trust the situation. Around 10 a.m., they turned back. Descended for an hour and a half back to Camp 4, even though the weather still looked amazing.
Probably the best decision they ever made. Because while they were down there, resting, tragedy struck higher up.
That's when the first casualty occurred. Dren Mandic, a Serbian climber, 31 years old. He'd summited Broad Peak, but was maybe the least experienced K2 climber on his team.
What happened?
He was moving up the traverse, this narrow section, and somehow collided with Cecily Skog, the Norwegian climber. He just fell. About 400 feet, cartwheeling down the floor.
Horrifying.
And then Even worse, people saw him stand up briefly, maybe disoriented, but then he just sort of folded over, slid another 300 feet over rocks, and didn't move again.
And Meyer and Strang heard this on the radio.
Yeah, calls came into Camp 4. Very bad fall. He's alive. He is still moving. Then later, just probably dead.
Did they try to help?
They wrestled with it, their own safety versus helping. But they decided it was the right thing to do. Packed gear, rope, oxygen, medicine, a pad to use as a sled. But by the time Strang got to him, Mandic was gone. Terrible head injury.
So they secured his body there.
Secured him to an ice axe at 26,000 feet to stay there forever or until the mountain takes him. A really grim omen for the day. But incredibly, it didn't stop the others.
That's the really difficult part to understand, isn't it? After seeing that or hearing about it, 19 climbers kept going up through the bottleneck, this groupthink idea.
It's powerful. Some maybe hoped Mandic was okay. Others were just hardened to death on these peaks.
Yeah.
Pemba Gyalje, one of the Sherpas, said he felt it was bad karma. But he kept going too.
Because everyone else was.
Pretty much. Because everyone else was still going on. There was no clear leader saying, stop, turn back. And on top of that, tensions were rising. Egos, arguments about gear, oxygen versus no oxygen, big teams versus small teams.
Like a pressure cooker.
Exactly. Ambition, exhaustion, hypoxia, rivalry, all mixing together, blinding them to the escalating danger.
But amidst all that, some did reach the summit. Brief moments of success, even as the clock was ticking way too late.
Right. Alberto Zerain, a Spanish climber, got there first, alone, around 3:40 p.m. Even he was shocked people were still coming up, wanted to yell at them to turn back.
Then Cecilie Skog, the Norwegian.
Her and Lars Fledonessa, around 5:30 p.m. She summited without gloves or a jacket. It was relatively warm then. They had a Norwegian flag and apparently a pink rabbit hat her husband Rolf Bay had given them. A poignant detail, especially since K2 had been notoriously deadly for women climbers.
Others summited even later.
Much later. Hugues Dobered, a Frenchman, 61 years old, the second oldest person ever to summit K2. He called his partner from the top, promising his next trip would be near the sea with the family.
Gerard MacDonald, the first Irishman.
Called his girlfriend, elated. The Dutch team, Van Rooyen, Cas van de Gel, Pemba Gyalje, around 8 p.m., incredibly late.
And last one.
Marco Confortola, the Italian. Van de Gel took his picture in the twilight. They were literally racing darkness at the summit.
And now, the descent. Statistically, the most lethal part of a K2 climb.
Way more dangerous.
Yeah.
Over a third of the deaths before 2008 happened on the way down. You're exhausted, maybe hypoxic, lights failing, your reserves are gone.
And that's when the mountain truly struck back, starting with Rolf Bay.
Cecilie Skog's husband. He'd actually made a really smart, tough call earlier. He felt something wasn't right, turned back before the summit, followed his own rules, get home, stay friends, reach your goal. In that order.
He waited for Cecilie.
Yeah. Waited on the snowfields below the summit. She even left her oxygen bottle for him.
So they started down together, Skog, Nessa, and Bay.
Yes. And as they were crossing the traverse, that narrow section below the bottleneck, the mountain just erupted. A precise crack and roar.
The Serac.
Almost certainly. A huge chunk of ice broke off. Skog said her headlamp went out, maybe from the vibration or blast. When she looked again, Bay's light was just gone, vanished. Nessa reached Skog. She asked him, desperately in Norwegian, "Do you think there's hope?"
And he said,
"Me." No. He knew Bay was dead, swept away instantly.
And that collapse, it did more than kill Bay, didn't it?
It triggered avalanches down the bottleneck, and critically, it ripped away the fixed ropes they'd relied on to cross the traverse safely. Anyone still above that point was now trapped, their main escape route gone.
Total chaos. A nightmare scenario unfolding in the dark.
Absolute chaos. And that's where the stories of survival, desperation, and loss get incredibly intense. Take Wilco van
Your
Rooyen.
Dutch leader. He was caught high up.
Yeah. He, Confortola, and McDonald had to bivouac near the summit. 27,500 feet, minus 20 degrees, no tent, no sleeping bags, just brutal.
What happened the next morning? August 2nd.
Van Rooyen woke up, realizing he was going snowblind. UV exposure, dehydration. He thought K2 was finally killing him. He looked at Confortola and McDonald, thought they were too exhausted to move or help.
So he left them.
He made that incredibly hard call to try and save himself. He started down alone, but took an unfamiliar route, got lost, disoriented, realized he'd left his GPS behind, trusting those trail markers that were part of the cooperation plan.
But he had a satellite phone.
He did. Called his wife, "I am alive, but I can't see and I am lost." His team used the phone's coordinates to eventually find him. But yeah, that decision to leave the others, It became a major point of dispute later. Shows the impossible choices people faced.
Meanwhile, Marco Concertola, the Italian, he wasn't just trying to survive, he was trying to help others.
An incredible struggle. He came across 3 climbers tangled in ropes below the traverse. 2 Koreans, 1 unconscious, and their Sherpa, Bote, trapped by the icefall.
And Gerard MacDonald, the Irishman.
Comfortola saw MacDonald nearby, maybe in a hypoxic haze, seemingly trying to help, but then he wandered off. Comfortola's belief later was that MacDonald stayed to help those trapped climbers and was then likely hit by another avalanche and died. A selfless act, in his view.
So Confortola tried to free the trapped climbers.
For 3 hours, exhausted, injured himself, cutting ropes with a knife and axe, gave his glove to the injured Sherpa. He radioed down, "I'm exhausted. It's impossible for me to help anymore. Come quickly." Eventually, he had to leave them to save himself, leaving his ice axe behind for them.
And he got hit by an avalanche, too.
Yeah, hit by a falling oxygen bottle during another slide. Pemba Gallo, the Dutch Sherpa, literally pinned him down to save him. Confortola eventually made it down but lost all his toes to frostbite.
Just harrowing. But amidst this horror, there were these clear acts of incredible heroism.
Absolutely. Like cheering Dorje, an American team Sherpa. After the fixed ropes were gone, he found little Pasang, a Korean Sherpa who'd lost his ice axe. Cheering tied them together and led him down the treacherous bottleneck unroped, saying, "We have 2 choices. Maybe we arrive together or we die together. Don't worry, I will not leave you." Amazing courage.
And others went back up to help.
Tragically, yes. Jumik Botse's brother, Big Pasang Boat, and his cousin climbed back into the bottleneck, knowing the danger, to search for Jumik and the trapped Koreans.
Oh.
Big Pasang was killed by another avalanche during that rescue attempt.
Unbelievable sacrifice. And Pemba Galje, who saved Confortola.
Yeah, Pemba risked his own neck repeatedly, getting Comfortola down, giving him oxygen meds. True heroism.
But the story of Gerard MacDonald's death, it highlights how confusing things get up there, doesn't it? With memory and trauma.
Definitely. Comfortola was convinced MacDonald died helping the trapped climbers. But cheering Dorje had a different account, suggesting MacDonald might have been a lone figure seen higher up, perhaps dying separately. Bowley, the author, notes how memory gets warped by altitude, trauma, maybe even self-serving stories afterward.
Guilt, blame.
Yeah. But Bowley also emphasizes if Comfortola's account is right, MacDonald's actions were incredibly brave. It just shows how hard it is to piece together the absolute truth in that kind of chaos.
After it was all over, the survivors went back to the Gilkey Memorial.
Added new names to the cairn. Dren Mandik, Rolf Bay, Gerard MacDonald, others. The Serbs poured whiskey on Mandik's plaque. Very moving. MacDonald's mother spoke of just uncomprehending loss. But a priest at his service called it an honor to die on a mountain, achieving a life's ambition. Complex feelings.
And the survivors themselves, how did they process it? It seemed to affect them all so differently.
Hugely differently. Cecily Skog was devastated. Couldn't leave K2 at first. Felt Rolf was still there. But her spirit wasn't broken. 16 months later, she trekked across Antarctica. Her love for wild places endured.
Others were more cautious.
Lars Nessa, who was with Skog when Bay died, reflected on the pain for the families. Said he'd never again climb a killer mountain like K2. Cass Vendegevel lost 30 pounds, worried about facing MacDonald's family. But he also felt climbing was part of who he was. Giving it up wouldn't be him.
But some seemed almost unchanged in their drive.
Yeah, Wilco van Rooyen, despite losing most of his toes, was apparently considering another K2 attempt a year later. Described as focused, egocentric, Alberto Zerain, the first to summit that day, he said, "I would go back now."
And Gomi-san, the Korean climber whose teammates died.
She kept chasing her goal of climbing all 14 8,000ers. Died just a year later on another peak, Nanga Parbat. It's like Bowley wrote, they're drawn like flies to the light, searching for meaning, testing themselves. K2 demanded heroism, but it also exposed fatal flaws, terrible errors. It really gets to the heart of that extreme human drive, doesn't it? Pushing limits, whatever the cost.
So we've journeyed up K2, looked at its tough history, and relived the sheer horror and complexity of 2008. What this deep dive shows, I think, is this tangled mix of ambition, the brutal toll of the death zone, the incredible bonds people form, but also the frictions under that kind of pressure.
And it leaves you with these huge questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why pursue these risks when the cost is so incredibly high for you, for your family? What are we learning about ourselves when we push right to the very edge of survival?
Because the mountain itself, K2, it doesn't care. It's indifferent. As Bowley says, it cared nothing for that human drama, that ambition. It just wiped it blithely away. But maybe, in its silence and its power, it acts like a mirror. reflecting back our own desires for achievement, for connection, maybe for understanding something fundamental about ourselves. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. As you face your own challenges, the things you climb for in your life, how much risk are you willing to accept for what you believe is truly worth it? And what does that pursuit tell you about yourself?